Okay, so leaving the Israelites alone for a while, let's take a peek at what's going on in the Philistine cities now that they've captured God. What are they going to do? They figured out a way to do something that mankind has been wanting to do all throughout its history. They have beaten God. They've got him in a box, and they've got the box right where they want it. So now what are they going to do? What are they going to do? After the Philistines had captured the Ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod, that's one of the major Philistine cities. Then they carried the ark into Dagon's temple and set it beside Dagon. That's their main god, their main fertility, storm god, whatever. When they say they set it beside Dagon, they mean they're setting it beside the statue or the idol of Dagon, by the way. When the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, there was Dagon, fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of the Lord. Now, this hasn't been very common. If you capture your enemy's gods, which are, of course, represented in your idols, which, of course, Israel wasn't made to make it. They weren't allowed to make images of God. So they had this Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so now this is being taken as a sign, as an image of God. So the Philistines have what they view as the image of Israel's God, and they're doing what they would do with any captured idols of any gods that they would fight from any other people, and they're putting it in their temple, subserving it to their own god, to the statue of their own god, Dagon in this case. So there was Dagon early this morning. There was Dagon, or his idol, fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So Dagon is the one who was humbled in this relationship, not the ark of the Lord. They took Dagon and put him back in his place. But the following morning, when they rose, there was Dagon, fallen on his face in the ground before the ark of the Lord. His head and hands had been broken off and were lying on the threshold. Only his body remained. That is why to this day, neither the I don't know what day this is, whatever day this last writer is writing. That is why to this day, neither the priests of Dagon nor any others who enter Dagon's temple at Ashdod step on the threshold. So they step over it, or they jump over it, or whatever. The Lord's hand was heavy upon the people of Ashdod and its vicinity. He brought devastation upon them and afflicted them with tumors. Now there's an extra line down here in the footnotes, which are added in some of the copies of the manuscripts of the text that we have. And it goes like this. And rats appeared in their land, and death and destruction were throughout the city. When the men of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, "The ark of the God of Israel must not stay here with us, because his hand is heavy upon us and upon Dagon our God." So they called together all the rulers of the Philistines and asked them, "What shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel?" They answered, "Have the ark of the God of Israel moved to Gath." And Gath is another one of the major Philistine cities. So they moved the ark of the God of Israel. They moved the ark of the God of Israel. But after they had moved it, the Lord's hand was against that city, throwing it into a great panic. He afflicted the people of the city, both young and old, with an outbreak of tumors, or tumors in the groin. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron, another major Philistine city. You have Ekron, Ashdod, Ekron, Gath, Ashkelon, and Gaza. As the ark of God was entering Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, "They have brought the ark of the God of Israel around to us to kill us and our people." So they called together all the rulers of the Philistines and said, "Send the ark of the God of Israel away. Let it go back to its own place, or it, or he, will kill us and our people." For death had filled the city with panic. God's hand was very heavy upon it. Those who did not die were afflicted with tumors, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. This could very well be a bubonic plague type situation here. That line we just read that was inserted about the rats appearing in the land probably is a reference to where these tumors were coming from. You know, we know from other places in history that bubonic plague spreads through mice and rats. The Philistines were a seafaring people, remember that. And so they probably had, just coincidentally, around the same time this was happening, they probably had a ship come in that had rats on it. Those rats would have been infected with the fleas that carry bubonic plague, or some other kind of disease. And so when the mice got loose, they spread it, and the fleas that were on them spread it to the people in the cities. So that's probably what's going on here. Now, we'll read about these mice in a bit. We know these mice were part of the curse, were seen by the people as part of the problem, because they offer up an image of golden mice as a restitution offering when they try to appease God to stop this plague. So they saw the mice as connected to these tumors. So it could have been a bubonic plague type situation, or at least something along those lines. When the ark of the Lord had been in Philistine territory for 7 months, the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners and said, "What shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us how we should send it back to its place." They answered, "If you return the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it away empty, but by all means send a guilt offering to him. Then you will be healed, and you will know why his hand has not been lifted from you." So not only do you have to send the ark back, you have to send a payment offering with it. You have to give the God of Israel something, and it's a guilt offering, a restitution offering, in addition to just sending the ark itself back. The Philistines asked, "What guilt offering should we send to them?" Or to him. They replied, 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, according to the number of the Philistine rulers. Remember, there was 5 major Philistine cities, because the same plague has struck both you and your rulers. Make models of the tumors and the rats that are destroying the country, and pay honor to Israel's God. Perhaps he will lift his hand from you and your gods and your land. Why do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh did? There's a reference to those guys again. When he, that is God, treated them harshly, they did not send the Israelites out so they could go on their way. Or did they not send the Israelites out so they could go on their way? So don't get as bad as they got. Okay, you're incurring the wrath now of the same God that Pharaoh got on the wrong side of. And it's playing out pretty poorly for you. So don't wait as long as Pharaoh did to change your mind and try to reverse course. Pharaoh never did reverse course. He told them to go at a certain point, but even then he changed his mind and went back after them again. Don't be like that. Learn from that bad example. That's why the bad example is there. Okay? That's why the bad examples are written down, is so other people can learn from them. Unfortunately for Pharaoh, someone's got to be the bad example. Someone's got to set the bad example, but other people are supposed to be able to learn from that. That's why they're written down. Now then, these are still the priests talking to the people, or the rulers, or whatever. Get a cart ready, a new cart ready, with 2 cows that have calved, so they have young ones, and have never been yoked, so they're not used to having a yoke, they're not used to working together and having a yoke on them. Hitch the cows to the cart, but take their calves away and pin them up. Take the ark of the Lord and put it on the cart, and in a chest beside it, put the gold objects you are sending back to him as a guilt offering. Send it on its way, but keep watching it. If it goes up to its own territory, toward Beth Shemesh, then the Lord has brought this great disaster upon us. If it does not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us, and that it just happened to us by chance. So the only way that this is going to happen, this cart being driven by these 2 calves, or 2 cows that have never been yoked and have just had calves, and aren't being guided by a human hand, the only way this is actually going to go to its destination is if God is doing it. And if God does it, he does do that, then the Philistines will know that yes, it was God's hand upon them that brought upon these mice and these tumors. Because these cows would never act this way normally. They would never abandon their calves. They would never work together if they had never been yoked together before. So these cows would never operate this way normally, especially without a human pilot guiding the cart. The only way that's going to happen is if God himself is doing it. And if he does, then they'll know that he also was responsible for the tumors and the mice, the rats. So they did this. They took 2 such cows and hitched them to the cart and pinned up their calves. They placed the ark of the Lord on the cart, and along with it the chest containing the gold rats and the models of the tumors. Then the cows. Now this is a mindset. The reason why we know that the people are linking these rats and tumors together is because they're offering these gold things in the shape of these rats and tumors. And in the mindset of the ancient person, when you made an offering like this and tried to appease, or when you sought the favor of your god or a god to get rid of something that you didn't want to have around you, you would make an item in the shape of that something you didn't want and say, get rid of this for me. Like that item, in this case, the gold little sculptures they made, is representing the thing they want to be freed from. So they're associating these rats with these tumors, with this disease. So probably these rats were carrying the disease with them, which again could be a very, very likely case of bubonic plague or some other kind of similar illness. And probably these rats came from a ship that they had just recently docked there. They came from someplace else, because these were seafaring people, and they were all along the coast. And so most likely, their tumors were connected to an infestation of rats that happened when the rats got on board a ship that came into the country recently. And it just so happened to occur at the time when they brought in the... Now, of course, it wasn't coincidental. And in fact, these people here, they want to know whether it was coincidental or whether it was God actually doing it. And we'll find out it was God actually doing it. So the circumstances that led to this were not purely... I think God used these circumstances, but he was very clearly in control of them. Then the cows went straight up toward Beth Shemesh, keeping on the road and lowing all the way. They did not turn to the right or to the left. The rulers of the Philistines followed them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. They wanted to watch to make sure this happened the way they needed to know, basically. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were harvesting their wheat in the valley. And when they looked up and saw the ark, they rejoiced at the sight. So the Israelites do not go to battle to save God. Okay, when God's ark comes back to the Israelites, it's not because they did anything to retrieve it. It's because God oppressed the Philistines to such a degree that they got rid of it. They sent it back. But it wasn't because that some brave, noble Israelite band of warriors took it upon themselves to go fight for it. That's not what happened at all. So when they saw the ark, they rejoiced at the sight. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh, and there it stopped beside a large rock. The people chopped up the wood of the cart. The people chopped up the wood of the cart and sacrificed the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. Now this isn't really a typical customary offering, but they're doing it anyway. The Levites took down the ark of the Lord, together with the chest containing the gold objects, and placed them on the large rock. On that day the people of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and made sacrifices to the Lord. The 5 rulers of the Philistines saw all this, and then returned that same day to Ekron. So they're satisfied. They know now that it was in fact God that did all the things to them, and they're ready to go back. They've seen what they needed to see. These are the gold tumors the Philistines sent as a guilt offering to the Lord. 1 each for Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. Those are the 5 major Philistine cities. And the number of the gold rats was according to the number of Philistine towns belonging to the 5 rulers, the fortified towns with their country villages. The large rock on which... that's whatever. Not going to worry about that particular footnote. The large rock on which they sat the ark of the Lord is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh. But God struck down some of the men of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death. In the footnote you see down here, 50,070, which is an absurd number. There's no way they could have had more than 50,000 people here in this one town to put to death. So 70 is the better figure here. Putting 70 of them to death because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. So apparently at some point they opened up this ark to see what was inside it. The people more, which they were not supposed to do. That was a very big no-no. Now, the Philistines could get away with touching the ark of the Lord. I mean, they didn't get away with it, obviously. They were afflicted with tumors and all these other problems. But they were not struck down dead simply for touching the ark of the Lord the way the Israelites were, because they were not under the covenant the Israelites were. They were foreigners to the covenant. So the same rules that apply to the Israelites not apply to the Philistines. That doesn't mean the Philistines got away scot-free. They certainly didn't. But they were not condemned simply for looking into the ark the way the Israelites were. Because the Israelites were supposed to know better. They were the ones who had the covenant. They were the ones who had the terms and conditions of living under God's covenant. And they should have known not to do that, but they did anyway. They probably didn't, though, honestly. Because they're going to ask here in a minute who can do this. The people mourned because of the heavy blow the Lord had dealt them. And the men of Beth Shemesh asked, who can stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God? To whom will the ark go from here? Shiloh has probably been destroyed by this point, or at least abandoned. Because they don't send it back to Shiloh. Which is where they should. The tabernacle were still standing and the high priests were still functioning. But the high priest is dead. Shiloh, there is no high priest right now. Shiloh apparently has been abandoned. I have no idea what happened to the tabernacle. So there is no place for the ark of God to go. Then they sent messengers to the people of Kiriath Jearim, saying, the Philistines have returned to the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to your place. So the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of the Lord. They took it to Abinadab's house on the hill, and consecrated Eleazar his son to guard the ark of the Lord. So the Israelites did nothing whatsoever to recapture the ark of God. God eventually, God cannot be taken prisoner, okay? The Philistines were so happy because they had done it. They thought they had done it. They had captured God. They had accomplished what mankind has been wanting to accomplish all throughout its history. They found a way to capture God, but that didn't work out for them. And God afflicted them so hard that they eventually just sent it back, saying, please take this thing, get rid of it, get it out of our hands. The Israelites were in no way active agents in the rescue of the Ark of the Covenant. They had nothing to do with it, in fact. They were just completely passive recipients, taking the Ark back, receiving the Ark when the Philistines sent it back on cows. So they had nothing to do with it whatsoever. But now the ark is back. However, like I said, Shiloh was abandoned or maybe destroyed as a religious site. There's no high priest functioning right now. The tabernacle, I have no idea whatever happened to that or the various parts that went with it or made it up. No idea what's going on there. So there's no real place for it. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know they don't know the proper protocols for using it or carrying it around or whatever they should do with it. They have no idea. There may have been a community of priests, or at least some priests, in this Kiriath Jearim place that had some idea what to do with it, maybe. It seemed like maybe these guys at Kiriath Jearim had a better idea than the guys at Beth Shemesh, because they do take it and they have it for a long time. At any rate, things are very much in limbo right now, and this is not the way things are supposed to be. Things are very much upside down and confused. And so these are still, even though they've got the ark back, these are still issues that are going to have to be dealt with.